You can see the man appearing to push the 33-year-old woman to the ground. She's narrowly missed by a bus, which swerves to avoid her.
It's 7:40 a.m., a crowded London Bridge, morning rush hour. A 33-year-old woman is walking northbound across Putney Bridge. A man is quickly jogging towards her, and as he approaches her, he drives his arms forward, pushing her straight into oncoming traffic. The victim calls out to get his attention, but he doesn't bat an eye. It was a crime that occurred in broad daylight in a crowded city, and it was all caught on camera for the world to see. Yet, the suspect was never identified, despite him returning back to the scene of the crime 15 minutes later. But then, he disappeared. You may have heard about this case when it happened years ago, and if you're like me, you probably assumed the guy got caught and went to jail, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. This is the disturbing unsolved mystery of the Putney Pusher. It's a normal weekday commute on the Thames. A 33-year-old woman is walking northbound across Putney Bridge. On the narrow walkway, a runner approaches head-on. As they intersect, he thrusts both arms into her, knocking her sideways off of the curb and directly into the oncoming bus lane. The Route 430 bus has just pulled out from stop FE. The driver that day, Olivier Sabri, is doing roughly city crawl speed. He sees a body drop into his path and wrenches the steering wheel, narrowly missing her by just inches. He stops. Passengers rush to help. The woman suffers minor injuries and survives. 15 minutes later, the same jogger returns. This time, he is across the bridge running in the opposite direction. He appears focused and unbothered. The victim sees him and shouts to get his attention, but he ignores her. He continues onward like nothing happened. Amidst the morning London rush, nobody stops him before he disappears into the crowd. For 3 months, the incident remained only in the minds of those who witnessed it, until August 8, 2017. The Metropolitan Police released the shocking footage of the assault, and immediately the video goes viral. In it, we can clearly see the perpetrator carrying out his crimes in broad daylight. He appears to be a white male in his mid-30s with short brown hair and an average build. And yet, despite having video evidence of him in the act, the grainy CCTV footage is not clear enough to give a face that you can identify without a shadow of a doubt. So the police launch a formal investigation and open their phone lines to the public. Tips pour in. The bus driver Salbris is hailed as a hero for his quick response to the woman falling in front of him. He later says he thought he was going to hit her, and to him, the shove looked deliberate.
And do you think it was an accident, or do you think this guy, this jogger, deliberately pushed that woman?
Well, it's difficult to really put under that it was an accident undeliberate, because the guy passed another man, and after that he went on to the ladies. So yeah, I do think that it was deliberate.
A manhunt to find the perpetrator ensues. Detectives work through more than 50 people of interest. They arrest 3 men across different leads. One arrest draws headlines. A 41-year-old American banker named Eric Belquist. His lawyers produce proof he was in the United States the day of the attack.
Claims he can't be that man in the video because he wasn't even in London when it happened. Lawyers representing Belquist tweeted out, Eric Belquist, who was arrested yesterday in retaliation to an assault that took place on Putney Bridge, has been wrongly implicated. He categorically denies being the individual concerned and has irrefutable proof that he was in the US at the time of the incident.
Police publicly clear him, and no charges end up being filed. Another arrest involves a 50-year-old man in southwest London. He is questioned on suspicion of grievous bodily harm and bailed. No charges follow. Yet another man, 49, is arrested in Aberdeen. But again, he too is released with no further action. All 3 men are cleared of any wrongdoing, and the case remains open. On June 28, 2018, with all lines of inquiry exhausted, the Met closed the investigation pending new evidence. No suspect identified, no motive established. A case that looked solvable on day 1 has now gone cold. But how? How could a man who committed such a blatant act of violence in broad daylight in a city full of cameras and bystanders just simply vanish. Given the viral nature of the video, many were quick to share their theories online. 1. Deliberate assault. The two-handed motion captured on CCTV, combined with the suspect's return 15 minutes later and refusal to engage, fuels the view that this was intentional violence rather than a collision. Investigators and the bus driver have both described the act as deliberate. 2. Mistaken provocation or runner rage. Some people suggested that maybe there was an unseen slight that provoked an impulsive shove. Based on the footage, however, there are no clues that could point to them having interacted with each other previously. Granted, it's possible that they could have crossed paths off camera in the past, or maybe the woman said something to him that wasn't picked up on camera, but based on the evidence that we have to work with, this is pure speculation. We would need to see some unreleased footage to prove this theory true. 3. Visitor who left the area quickly. Speculation persists that the suspect was traveling for work or staying nearby, which could explain why he was never recognized locally after the video aired. Some users on Reddit speculated that perhaps he worked for an embassy nearby, given how his movements were surprisingly not tracked whatsoever after he left the scene of the crime, meaning it could have been politically inconvenient to bring him to justice. Another user suggested that he may have been staying at the nearby Premier Inn, which means he could have slid back into his hotel room less than 2 minutes after the attack. And if he was smart, he would have destroyed the clothing he wore that day, and possibly went as far as dyeing his hair or wearing a disguise, removing the possibility of ever concretely linking him back to the attack. The bottom line is, no verified motive has been established, and no suspect has been identified. Beyond the video itself and police statements on the matter, all of the speculations remain unproven, and perhaps most unsettling, may never be proven true or false. Perhaps a summary of the timeline of events can help us shed some light on this troubling question. May 5th, 2017, around 7:40 a.m., the unidentified jogger commits the assault on the east side of Putney Bridge, pushing the woman straight into oncoming traffic of a busy street. It's a near miss with London's Route 430 bus, and the victim sustains only minor injuries. Around 7:55 a.m., the jogger returns in the opposite direction, ignores the victim, and then leaves the area as if nothing happened. August 8th, police release footage of the incident. Over the next couple days, multiple arrests are made, including a 50-year-old man and a 41-year-old who is later eliminated with an alibi. Further arrests follow, all released without charges. A year later, on June 28th, the investigation is closed pending new leads. A total of about 50 people were reviewed, 3 arrests, no charges. 6 years later, public interest in the case picks up again following the release of a stage play about the incident. But the case still remains open and unsolved to this day. But why hasn't the Putney Pusher been identified after all these years? Well, if we're being honest, the clip showed a runner with generic gear and generic features. London is an extremely densely populated area, filled with people that look just like the man in the video. And despite the city being saturated with cameras, it's worth noting that bridges often have blind spots from CCTV. On top of that, most of the bus cameras in London face inward, making it unlikely that they would capture the perpetrator. And without a clean shot of his face, accurately identifying a random jogger is harder than it sounds. Once again, police reviewed over 50 suspects, each of which fit the profile of the jogger in the video, but none of them were a match. Random violence in broad daylight, in the middle of one of the most populated cities in the world. A woman who should be dead, only surviving because of a bus driver's split reaction time. And somewhere out there, a jogger who got away with it all. If the man on Putney Bridge is ever identified, it won't change what that video showed us. It showed how close ordinary life runs to catastrophe, and how razor thin the line of survival can be. Thanks for watching this episode of Crime Bumps. Be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the dark and disturbing side of true crime. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.